Hello everyone! I hope you're ready to begin another adventure. Because today, Wayne starts reading Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Yay! Always remember that as we go on these amazing stories, all you have to do is press the CC button in your YouTube link to be able to follow along with the words. Now I believe that Madame Owl will be perfect to join us for today's adventure. Now that Madame Owl is here, let's jump in. Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Chapter 1. The Worst Birthday. Not for the first time, an argument had broken out over breakfast at number 4 Privet Drive. Mr. Vernon Dursley had been woken up in early hours of the morning by a loud hooting noise from his nephew Harry's room. "Third time this week," he roared across the table. "If you can't control that owl, it'll have to go." Harry tried yet again to explain. "She's bored," he said. "She's used to flying around outside. If I could just let her out at night." "Do I look stupid?" snarled Uncle Vernon, a bit of fried egg dangling from his bushy mustache. "I know what'll happen if the owl's let out." He exchanged dark looks with his wife, Petunia. Harry tried to argue back, but his words were drowned out by a long, loud belch from Dursley's son, Dudley. "I want more bacon." "There's more in the frying pan, sweetums," said Aunt Petunia, turning misty eyes on her mastiff son. "We must build you up once you've got the chance. I don't like the sound of that school food." "Nonsense, Petunia. I never went hungry when I was at Smeltings," said Uncle Vernon heartily. "Dudley gets enough. Don't you, son?" Dudley, who was so large his bottom drooped over either side of the kitchen chair, grinned and turned to Harry. "Pass the frying pan." "You forgot the magic word," said Harry irritably. The effect of this simple sentence on the rest of the family was incredible. Dudley gasped and fell off his chair with a crash that shook the whole kitchen. Mrs. Dudley gave a small scream and clapped her hands over her mouth. Mr. Dudley jumped to his feet, veins throbbing in his temple. "I meant please," said Harry quickly. "I didn't mean—" "What have I told you?" thundered his uncle, spraying spit all over the table. "About saying the M word in this house." "But How dare you threaten Dudley?" roared Uncle Vernon, pounding the table with his fist. I warned you. I will not tolerate mention of your abnormality under this roof." Harry stared from his purple-faced uncle to his aunt, who was trying to heave Dudley off of his feet. "All right," said Harry. "All right." Uncle Vernon sat back down, breathing like a winded rhinoceros and watching Harry closely out of the corner of his small, sharp eyes. Ever since Harry had come home for summer holidays, Uncle Vernon had been treating him like a bomb that might go off at any moment. Because Harry Potter wasn't a normal boy. As a matter of fact, he was as not normal as it's possible to be. Harry Potter was a wizard. A fresh wizard from his first year at Hogwarts, School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. And if the Dursleys were unhappy to have him back for the holidays, it was nothing to how Harry felt. He missed Hogwarts so much, it was like having a constant stomachache. He missed the castle with its secret passageways and ghosts in his classes. Though perhaps not Snape, the potions master. The mail arriving by Owl, eating banquets in the Great Hall, sleeping in his 4-poster bed in the Tower dormitory, visiting the gamekeeper, Hagrid in his cabin next to the Forbidden Forest of the grounds, and especially Quidditch, the most popular sport in the wizarding world. 6 tall goalposts, 4 flying balls, and 14 players on broomsticks. All Harry's spellbooks, his wand, robe, cauldron, and top-of-the-line Nimbus 2000 had been locked in the cupboard under the stairs by Uncle Vernon the instant Harry had come home. What did the Dursleys care if Harry lost place on Quidditch team because he hadn't been practicing all summer? What was it to the Dursleys if Harry went back to school without any homework done? The Dursleys were what wizards called muggles. Not a drop of magic blood in their veins. And as far as they were concerned, having a wizard in the family was a matter of the deepest shame. Uncle Vernon had even padlocked Harry's owl Hedwig's inner cage to stop her from carrying messages to anyone in the wizarding world. Harry looked nothing like the rest of the family. Uncle Vernon was a large necklace with an enormous black mustache. Aunt Petunia, horse-faced and bony. Dudley, his blonde, pink, and porky. Harry, on the other hand, was small and skinny with brilliant green eyes and jet black hair that was always untidy. He wore round sunglasses. On his forehead was a thin, lightning-shaped scar. It was with this scar that made Harry so particularly unusual, even for a wizard. This scar was only a hint of Harry's very mysterious past, for the reason he had been left on the Dursleys' doorstep 11 years ago. At the age of 1 year old, Harry had somehow survived a curse from the greatest dark sorcerer of all time, Lord Voldemort, whose name most wizards and wizards still fear to speak. Harry's parents died in Voldemort's attack, but Harry escaped with a lightning scar, and somehow, nobody understood why, Voldemort's powers had been destroyed the instant he failed to kill Harry. So, Harry had been brought up by his dead mother's sister and her husband. He had spent 10 years with the Dursleys, never understanding why he kept making odd things happen without meaning to, believing the Dursley stories that he had got this scar from a car crash that killed his parents. And then, exactly a year ago, Hogwarts had written to Harry, and the whole story had to come out. Harry had taken up his place at the Wizardry School, where he and his scar were famous. But now the school year was over, and he was back with the Dursleys, being treated like a dog that had rolled in something smelly. The Dursleys hadn't even remembered that today happened to be Harry's 12th birthday. Of course, his hopes hadn't been high. They'd never given him a real present, let alone a cake, but ignore it completely. At that moment, Uncle Vernon cleared his throat importantly and said, "Now, as we all know, today is a very important day." Harry looked up, hardly daring to believe. "This could be the very day I make the biggest deal of my career," said Uncle Vernon. Harry went back to his toast. Of course, he thought bitterly. Uncle Vernon was talking about that stupid dinner party. He had been talking of nothing else for 2 weeks. Some rich builder and his wife were coming over to dinner, but Uncle Vernon was hoping to get a huge order from him. "I think we should run through the schedule one more time," said Uncle Vernon. "We should all be in position at 8 o'clock. Petunia, you will be in the lounge," said Aunt Petunia promptly, waiting to welcome them graciously to our home. "I'll be waiting to open the door." Dudley put on a foul, simpering smile. "May I take your coats, Mr. and Mrs. Mason?" "They'll love him," cried Aunt Petunia rapturously. "Excellent, Dudley," said Uncle Vernon. Then he rounded on Harry. "And you?" "I'll be in my bedroom, making no noise and pretending I'm not there," said Harry tonelessly. "Exactly," said Uncle Vernon nastily. "I will lead them into the lounge to introduce to you, Petunia, and pour them drinks. At 8:15, I'll announce dinner," said Aunt Petunia. "And Dudley, you'll say, 'May I take you through the dining room, Mrs. Mason?'" said Dudley, offering his fat arm to an invisible woman. "My perfect little gentleman," sniffed Aunt Petunia. "And you?" said Uncle Vernon viciously at Harry. "I'll be in my room, making no noise and pretending I'm not there," said Harry dully. "Precisely. Now, we should aim to get a few good compliments at dinner. Petunia, any ideas?" "Vernon tells me you're a wonderful golfer, Mr. Mason." "Do please tell me where you bought your dress, Miss Mason." "Perfect, Dudley. How about, we had to write an essay about our hero at school, Mr. Mason, and I wrote about you." That was too much for both Petunia and Harry. Aunt Petunia burst into tears and hugged her son, while Harry ducked under the table so they wouldn't see him laughing. "And you, boy?" Harry fought to keep his face straight as he emerged. "I'll be in my room, making no noise and pretending I'm not there," he said. "Too right, you will," said Uncle Vernon firstly. "The Masons don't know anything about you, and it's going to stay that way. When dinner's over, you take Miss Mason back to the lounge for coffee, Petunia, and I'll bring the subject around to drills. With any luck, I'll have the deal signed and sealed before the news at 10. We'll be shopping for a vacation home in Morocco this time tomorrow." Harry couldn't feel too excited about that. He didn't think the Dursleys would like him any better in Morocco than they did in Privet Jive. "Right, I'm off into town to pick up the dinner jackets for Dudley and me. And you," he snarled at Harry, "you stay out of your aunt's way while she's cleaning." Harry left through the back door. It was a brilliant sunny day. He crossed the lawn and slumped on a green bench and sang under his breath, "Happy birthday to me, happy birthday to me." No cards, no presents, and he would be spending the evening pretending not to exist. He gazed miserably into the hedge. He had never felt so lonely. More than anything else at Hogwarts, more than even playing Quidditch, Ron missed his best friends, Ron Weasley and Hermione Granger. They, however, didn't seem to be missing him at all. Neither of them had written him at all summer, even though Ron said he was going to ask Harry to come and stay. Countless times, Harry had been on the point of unlocking Hedwig's cage by magic and sending her to Ron and Hermione with a letter. But it wasn't worth the risk. Underage wizards weren't allowed to use the magic outside of school. Harry hadn't told the Dursleys this. He knew it was only their terror that he might turn them all into dung beetles that stopped them from locking him in the cupboard under the stairs with his wand and broomstick. For the first couple of weeks back, Harry had enjoyed muttering nonsense words under his breath and watching Dudley tearing out of the room as fast as his fat legs could carry him. But the long silence from Ron and Hermione had made Harry feel too cut off from the magical world that even taunting Dudley had lost its appeal. And now Ron and Hermione had forgotten his birthday. What wouldn't he give now for a message from Hogwarts? From any witch or wizard. He'd almost be glad at the sight of his arch enemy, Draco Malfoy, just to be sure it hadn't all been a dream. Now that it had been a whole year at Hogwarts had been fun. At the very end of the last term, Harry had come face to face with none other than Lord Voldemort himself. Voldemort might have been a ruin of his former self, but he was still terrifying, still cunning, still determined to regain power. Harry had slipped through Voldemort's clutches for the second time, but it had been a narrow escape, and even now, weeks later, Harry kept waking in the night, remembering his livid face, his wide, mad eyes. Harry suddenly sat bolt upright on the garden bench. He had been staring absent-mindedly into the hedge, and the hedge was staring back. Two enormous green eyes had appeared among the leaves. Harry jumped to his feet, just as a jeering voice floated across the lawn. "I know what a day it is," sang Dudley, waddling towards him. The huge eyes blinked and vanished. "What?" said Harry, not taking his eyes off the spot where it had been. "I know what day it is," Dudley repeated, coming right up to him. "Well done," said Harry. "So you finally learned the days of the week." "Today's your birthday," said Dudley. "How come you haven't gotten any cards? Haven't you got friends at your freak place?" "Better not let your mom hear you talking about my school," said Harry coolly. Dudley hitched up his trousers, which were slipping down his fat bottom. "Why are you staring at the hedge?" he said suspiciously. "I'm trying to decide what should be the best spell to set it on fire," said Harry. Dudley stumbled backwards at once, a look of panic in his fat face. "You can't. Dad told you you're not allowed to do my magic. He said he'll chuck you out of the house, and you haven't gotten anywhere else to go. You haven't gotten any friends to take you." "Jiggery pokery," said Harry in a fierce voice. "Hocus pocus, squiggly wiggly." "Mom!" howled Dudley, tipping over his feet as he dashed back to the house. "Mom! He's doing you know what!" Harry paid dearly for this moment of fun, as neither Dudley nor their hedge was in any way hurt. Aunt Petunia knew he hadn't really done magic. He still had to duck as she aimed a very heavy blow at his head with a soapy frying pan, when she gave him work to do, with promise he wouldn't eat again until he'd finished. While Dudley lolled around watching it and eating ice cream, Harry cleaned the windows, washed the car, mowed the lawn, trimmed the flower beds, pruned and watered roses, and repainted the garden bench. The sun blazed overhead, burning the back of his neck. Harry knew he shouldn't have risen Dudley's bait, but Dudley said the very thing Harry had been thinking to himself. Maybe he didn't have any friends at Hogwarts. Wish they could see Fairy Miss Harry Potter now, he thought savagely, as he spread manure on the flower beds, his back aching, sweat running down his face. It was 7:30 in the evening, when at last, exhausted, he heard Aunt Petunia calling him. "Get in here and walk on the newspaper." Harry moved gladly into the shade of the gleaming kitchen. On top of the fridge stood tonight's pudding, a huge mound of whipped cream and sugared violets. A loin of pork roast was sizzling in the oven. "Eat quickly, the Masons will be here soon," said Aunt Petunia, pointing to 2 slices of bread and a lump of cheese on the table. She was already wearing a salmon pink cocktail dress. Harry washed his hands and bolted down his pitiful supper. The moment he had finished, Aunt Petunia whisked away his plate. "Upstairs, hurry." As he passed the door to the living room, Harry caught a glimpse of Uncle Vernon and Dudley in bow ties and dinner jackets. He had only just reached the stairs landing when the doorbell rang and Uncle Vernon's furious face appeared at the foot of the stairs. "Remember, boy, one sound." Harry crossed into his bedroom on tiptoes, slipped inside, closed the door. The trouble was, there was already someone sitting on it. Well, that is a very interesting place to end today's story. Who do you think's going to be there, Madam Owl? I guess we'll just have to see. We'll see you on the next adventure, okay? And we'll see you on the next adventure, here with Wayne Reads. Thank you for joining us, and we can't wait to see you again. Bye-bye!